Steve Novak, a guy who had a great career as an outside shooter. Hey, the Bucks 13-5 record, best mark through 18 games since 1980. How big of an impact is head coach Mike Budenholzer having in his first year?
Huge. The guy has come in and really implemented what we're calling the Budenholzer system, and it's been fantastic. I think it's really unique to see a coach come in and have his system implemented this quickly, this well. The Milwaukee Bucks were a top 10 offensive team last year, but for Coach Bud to come in and for the Milwaukee Bucks to truly, if you look at the offensive and defensive categories right now, the Bucks are top 3 in three-point shooting percentage, rebounding, field goal percentage, so many of the important indicators, and a lot of that credit does go to Coach Bud and his system. For obviously they have a guy named Giannis that can do some big things, but it's what they've done around him, adding the shooters and getting that rebounding up. They've been off to an amazing start in the East so far.
I mean, offensively, they scored 100 points in every single game. They lead the NBA in offensive rating. What do you think is the key to unlocking all of that potential? Is it just Coach Bud, or is there something else we're not seeing?
There's definitely a little bit of Coach Bud magic, but I really think that the key to it is that the Milwaukee Bucks have the tools to be a real threat in the restricted area. Really, there's not been a threat in the restricted area like Giannis right now since Shaq. Giannis is averaging almost 18 points a game in the restricted area, which is kind of outrageous. I think Shaq at the highest averaged 13 or 14 points in the restricted area, and Giannis is getting there by himself. It's not somebody throwing it down to him, so he's dominating in the restricted area, and the Bucks are the first #1 team in three-pointers made. So I think that those two things obviously complement each other so well, and if you read all the analytics and the way everybody's talking about the game of basketball right now, it's about can you have three-pointers and score in the restricted area, and I think the Bucks are one of the best teams at it right now.
Having said that, what are the expectations for this team this year?
You know, I think they talked about improving every day in the beginning of the season and the preseason. Like, what are your goals? We want to hear you say conference finals. We want to hear you say championship. And they say we want to improve. But there's certainly a buzz right now that the Milwaukee Bucks are perhaps the best team in the NBA. They had a bad loss last game to the Phoenix Suns, which kind of knocked that down a notch. But the game before that, they played the Portland Trail Blazers, record-wise, the best team in the West, and beat them 143-100. And they're kind of started that buzz that this may be a really special team. Categorically, you're looking at the statistics and you're saying they're dominating in so many areas that this really may be a Golden State type of team that's dominant in so many categories and able to carry that all the way through to late in the year. And I think with a guy like Giannis, with the experience he has in his 6th year, he's in a place that he can lead and kind of be that guy, to be that alpha on a championship caliber team. So I think they're shooting for a championship this year. I think it's going to get more real as the season goes on.
Shooting for a championship quite literally with all those outside shots. Steve Novak, a shooter yourself, thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
So much to touch on there as far as what the Bucks are doing positively, but I think something that jumps off the page describes everything. They were 20th in pace last year, 4th in pace this year. How does that change what they're able to do offensively?
Well, I think a big part of the reason for that is that they're getting stops this year. They're 4th in defensive rating this year. They were 18th last year. Their defensive rating's 103.8. Last year it was more than 109. So because they're getting stops, they can run off of that. I think what he said that was the most interesting and the thing that really struck me is how dominant Giannis has been in the paint. And the reason for that, more than any other for me, is Brook Lopez. When you've got a floor spacing, three-point shooting 5, dragging bigs out of the lane, that's going to give Giannis, who is literally always one step from the rim inside of half court, it's going to give him a much more open lane to deal with. Brook has 48 threes on the season, second to Chris Middleton's 54 on that team, and it is significant that Brook is a 5.
The stretch 5 gives your team a totally different dynamic. Of course, yeah, you love to have shooting, but when it's the 5, man, that just means that the other team's best shot blocker now can't stay in the lane. Like, I know when I was playing, I hated to be on the perimeter. Five men don't like to be on the perimeter. They like to be in the lane, patrolling the paint, because that's the area they've known how to play their whole life. Now when you have somebody like Brook Lopez spotting up in the corner, the whole weak side of their defense changes, because now your 5-man is not the last line of defense. It's like your point guard or your small forward. Things change. Or your 5-man at the top of the key. Your center's at the top of the key now. Things change. And Giannis is excellent at looking at where the 5 is, seeing the gaps in your defense, attacking it. And once he attacks it, we just heard about how he's dominating the restricting area. He's spinning, he's laying it up, he's dunking the ball. No one can stop him once he gets in there one-on-one, and it's very hard to help because of all the shooting and the pace that they're playing at.
What's interesting. I'm sorry. What's interesting with Bud is that you see where that came from, the shooting five and the need for a shooting five. Atlanta got swept multiple years in a row by Cleveland, and Channing Frye was a floor spacing three who shot almost 70% from three in the playoffs against Atlanta. Bud saw that, and he applied it. And it's one of the things that makes Bud special. He's not dogmatic. He wants to learn something new all the time, and he is applying what he learns every step along the way.
Quickly, we heard Steve Novak say that the expectations for this team now are championship ones. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think they are. I think they have a chance. Now, do I think they're the favorites in the Eastern Conference? No. But when you look out there, no LeBron in the East, Giannis arguably the best player in the East, and with all the shooting, they have a shot. If they continue to get better, they continue to improve, they get matched up in the right type of matchup, and if Boston doesn't improve, why shouldn't they have championship aspirations? Boston's not playing at the highest level. Philly's made some changes now, but Philly kind of struggled out of the gate. This Milwaukee team has to feel like they have just as good a chance as anybody with the way they've played to start this season.
Certainly the team